Executives from some of the largest toy companies who review thousands of pitches a year are on a panel in the next video to share the do's and don'ts of pitching your incredible toy inventions to toy manufacturers. When inventor relations reps or executives give you feedback, pay attention to them. You might be pitching your idea to different companies 5 times a month, let's say, but these executives are repitching ideas from many different inventors and inventor studios to their internal teams 60 times a month. Because of that, they have insider information on what those internal teams are really looking for and why they're looking for it. So their feedback is really valuable. Don't take it lightly. Now, one of our favorite parts of this panel is the Q&A session. Find out why Trina McFarland says you shouldn't come into a pitch just thinking about your idea and what you should be thinking about instead. I'll quiz you on it at the end of the video.
All right, we're gonna wait for a couple of Timmys to join in. All right, as everyone's joining us, sorry we were a couple minutes behind, but thanks for being patient as we got everything figured out for today. So thanks everyone for joining. This is our last panel of the day. So thanks so much everyone for joining all of our different live sessions. We have an amazing panel. I know this has been a highly sought after panel. Everyone's been waiting patiently for this one, and we made you wait a couple extra minutes. So thanks so much. Pass it over right now to our moderator, Caitlin, who's going to kick us right off.
Thank you for that introduction, Shannon. On behalf of Women in Toys and all of us who've been in the audience watching this awesome program today, I congratulate you and the whole team for putting in so much work for such an amazing event. We've really enjoyed hearing from all the experts invited to share their knowledge today, and we're super excited to present 5 more. 5 more people to introduce you to. These are the gatekeepers of some of the largest toy companies. Also, your allies, helping to license your toy and make your invention really stand out. Annually, they review hundreds, if not thousands of submissions and still manage to seem excited every time they see a new product. I'm privileged to work with each of them in my role at Creativity Inc. and our sister studio, Funfair. To introduce my background, I lead marketing, new business, and inventor relations at Creativity, a design and development firm based in San Carlos, California. In over 20 years of business, we have helped our partners in the toy, tech, and entertainment industries develop and launch over 7,000 products. Toys like Hatchimals and Furby and Fingerlings, as well as mobile apps and voice-first product engagements for Amazon Alexa and Google Assistant. We're best known for our expertise in sound programming and interaction design, but a lesser known fact is that we also invent toys, which we then shop around and sometimes license to the estimable people like on our panel today, if we're lucky. But invention is not just a game of luck. There are ways to improve your chances and really nail that product pitch. And it's a poorly kept secret that many of the most successful toys in the world came from small invention houses or even individuals. So in my role as moderator, I will be asking this team of 5 experts to put aside their competitive differences and help guide all of us through the do's and don'ts of how to successfully license your toy invention to their company and hopefully become the next $1 million or $20 million brand. So this panel, I'm going to run through a few bios and introduce everybody one by one, and we'll start with David Winter from Jazzwares. David, you spent 11 years with Spin Master doing inventor relations and recently moved to Jazzwares to head new product invention. Jazzwares might be called an up-and-coming toy company, but in my eyes, it's already here. It's known for its hot licenses like Fortnite, Roblox, Pokemon, Blippi, Blackpink, and Cocomelon, as well as new brands as a result of the Wicked Toys acquisition like Cabbage Patch. But you have also launched some brand new own brands like Fuzzables, and you always have your ear to the ground for new licenses and innovation. That's really the hallmarks of Jazzwares, I'd say, just by listing all those licenses. And certainly that's what you were known for when working at Spin Masters also. So what tempted you to go over and join Jazzwares?
Well, they do have a pretty impressive license portfolio, but where we can really move the needle is in new IP. And so that's why I came down to Jazzwares, is because with the inventor community at my back and supporting us, we have a huge potential to grow with owned licensed inventor IP. So we're looking to partner with the community, see opportunities across the category. And it's a super exciting time for inventors because maybe traditionally this wasn't the top of mind choice for folks, but it should be given the institutional capabilities of the organization, how we can turn amazing product out from this company. So I'm excited to see what everyone has in store for the future.
And we can't wait to learn what you are going to license next. Next panelist I'd like to introduce is Trina McFarland. Trina is the founder of her own inventor relations company, Tinkertini. She's been mentioned several times over the program in the course of today, so you might be a little familiar with it so far. We're definitely going to get more into how her company helps inventors and toy companies as an innovation platform and helping to make product acquisition seamless. But before that, Trina started out in sales for HP, transitioned into marketing, and then landed her first inventor relations role with Disney Consumer Products. She continued on in inventor relations for Jakks Pacific and was most recently with Mattel and Fisher-Price. So she carries with her a wealth of knowledge from some of the most successful toy companies in the world. Trina, now that you are working with Tinkertini, what encouraged you to go out on your own and start this whole innovation platform?
Well, honestly, I was laid off pregnant and I decided that was enough of that. And I wanted to sort of drive my own bus, and I had some pretty provocative ideas on how to do things differently. And I figured it was time to just go for it solo and introduce this way of working and this business model that obviously I'm very familiar with to companies and help them grow their business in a new way. Sorry. So that's pretty much the gist of it. That's why I decided is there's a lot of freedom and we're definitely exploring a lot of new ways of working.
Can you give us a few examples of your clients today?
Sure. So active outreaches, we support Universal Brand Group. We have Alpha Group, Funrise, What Kids Want. And through launching our Tinkerly platform, I would expect our client roster to explode here very soon. So fingers crossed, and we'll see how it goes.
Thank you. And on to Harry Sivander. You have a background in industrial design, which is pretty unique to the other panelists here. So you started out working at a packaging manufacturer, then went on to do prototyping for Artissimo, spent 6 years with the toy company Mega Brands, and there you were instrumental to the success of the Call of Duty line, and you did some time working in Sweden in 3D printing. Phew. And you've been at Spin Master for 5 years, one of the biggest toy companies in the world. They are sort of known in the toy industry as the cool kids, with brands like Air Hogs, Bakugan, Zoomer, Hatchimals, Kinetic Sand, Erector Set. You also make your own entertainment IP with Paw Patrol and have a successful games and puzzles line after the Cardinal acquisition. So you cover almost every category over there at Spin Master.
We do. It's a lot of stuff.
Do you focus on any particular categories in your role?
It's been expanding over the last 2 years. I've mostly spent my life designing toys primarily for the boys market, usually 5 to 7, and then was doing that as well at Spin Master before Inventor Relations. And then once I joined the team and did a lot of prelim development, it expanded into all these categories. And so it's a great learning experience along the way. I've learned so much about dolls, activities, games, and everything's been instrumental in kind of growing my understanding of the whole industry. I definitely tend to geek out a little heavier about the boy stuff. Lately, the doll stuff's been really exciting. As a 36-year-old straight man, it's not quite my forte, but it's a big learning experience. But those are big focal points that we're really interested in, that we don't always see as much that we want, but we're ready to tackle that very heavily.
Excellent. I want to now introduce Tanya Thompson, another Canadian on our panel. We have 3 of them. I absolutely love this fact about Tanya's background. She was a high school mathematics teacher for 11 years before she started working in the toy industry. From there, she went over to work for Think Fun, which is where she made the leap into inventor relations. She worked for Mastermind Toys and Marbles the Brain Store in product development and inventor relations roles before landing at Hasbro, where she's been for 3 years. Hasbro is, of course, the largest toys and game company behind Lego, known for classic games like Monopoly, Risk, Clue, The Game of Life, Jenga, Candyland, Twister, as well as new favorites like Pie Face and Don't Step in It. Tanya, in your role as the Director of Global Product Acquisition on the games team, you contribute a wealth of knowledge of toy design and development and count in your network some of the most successful inventors in the world. You also sit on the executive board for the Chicago Toy and Game Fair, Hatch, Gathering for Gardner, and the International Summit for Professional Inventors. How do you find the time, and how do all of these things connect for you when you're looking at new product acquisition?
I I think that, so me now, I'm in my dream job, and everything leading up to when I got hired from Hasbro was always seemingly for a reason. So I learned something from each piece of the different things that I did. Even teaching taught me so much, just about like whether it's internally presenting to company execs, or whether it's breaking things down to explain it to people. Like there's just something from everything that I've done that have helped me do what I do today.
I love that. One more panelist. I saved Adam for last, actually, because of this fact. Prior to his role as Vice President of Business Development and Inventor Relations at PlayMonster, Adam bootstrapped and built not one, but 2 consumer products companies, both of which he exited to PlayMonster, actually, where he works today. Over the years, he's designed, manufactured, and launched dozens of products. And so I think everybody on this panel uniquely empathizes to everybody in the audience. And that's one interesting fact I wanted to point out for Adam. So in a sense, he's been on both sides of the table, making him uniquely able to empathize with our audience and inventors today. PlayMonster, which was formerly Patch Products, is a business that has been around since 1985. They also have a strong games business with titles like Stratego, Yeti and My Spaghetti, The 5-Second Rule, Jeff Foxworthy's Relative Insanity, and Farkle. But they also have a crafts and kids preschool line, as well as some girls lines and a new building line, Snapships. So Adam, we'd love to come back to you and pick your brain about new categories, how we can get advice for deciding whether to take a product to market or launch it. I'd love to hear if you have a favorite out of all the products that you've launched yourself that you could share today.
Oh, caught me off guard with that question. I've got a bunch of favorites, but you know, it's a toss-up between a new escape room game series that we've done on the market this year called Break-In, and our Snapships line, which you mentioned, which is a really innovative spaceship construction line backed by content and a very cool augmented reality app, which is something relatively new to us.
Great. Thank you. So now that we have gone through some of the bios, I'm going to run through a couple questions for the panelists and ask each of them to answer. And at the end, we're going to have a lightning round where we have 3 questions that everybody will answer. So starting with the first question, we're going to talk about the ideation phase, and this one goes to you, David. So we had a whole panel on this earlier, and actually we had an IDEO talk also about different sources of inspiration. But as an inventor relations executive, you're also tasked with staying up on the trends. So where do you get all of your inspiration and staying in the know of what all the kids are doing?
You know, I mean, in the before all this, walking the aisles at retail was a great way to get a sense of what's happening in the now. Color palettes, play patterns. I mean, you'd have to live under a rock to not notice the unboxing trend or the marriage of collectibles and compounds. But beyond that, you want to be forward thinking and future thinking. So I like to live a lot on YouTube, Reddit, and Imgur. Depending on the sort of subreddits or channels you subscribe to, will give you a great insight to like how kids are playing, what's cool, you know, just dude perfect stuff. Like you can be exposed to so much out there that doesn't have to be one specific category, whether it be dolls or boy stuff. Like you can just see like cool influencers and cool people just doing neat stuff and kind of get some inspiration from that.
I love that. Everyone always says YouTube, but Reddit and the others, those are different ones that I think people don't always.
I'm not going to give away my subreddit list, but there's some good channels to follow.
Excellent. Harry, what about you, especially when you're looking at competitive releases or other toy companies? How do you stay up on the lines and different trends and sources of inspiration?
I think, yeah, David just hit it pretty well as far as like going online. There's a lot of access to company portfolios. It's shocking how many people come to pitch me an idea and have never looked at our website in depth. So I would say check out what people are doing. Primarily to start with, a great idea of yours might be competing with something already out there. See what people have done. Think about throwbacks. Nostalgia comes back a lot into play, and there's a lot of play patterns that you can kind of regurgitate in very unique ways. So don't be afraid to look at what's going on out there and think that what you need to come up with has to be absolutely out of this world, because sometimes people won't even get that. And so I think knowing your competition, knowing what's out there, and then look at sidelines as well, you know, whether it could be from kitchen stuff to fashion, you know, to automotive. There's a lot of things that are speaking to people around the world, and you can use those as inspirations to bring back into the toy industry.
I love that about nostalgia. How far ahead are we of the nostalgia factors? What decade should we be looking at right now?
You know, this goes back and forth a lot and depends on what item it is. For example, like we bought Etch-a-Sketch, and that still resonates with a lot of people, but you need to target your audience quite well. Kids are not necessarily plugged into that, but still enjoy playing it. But there's a certain subset that would go back to, you know, when I was a kid and I was hot on Etch-a-Sketch. So that branding applies to people that are young parents right now. And then sometimes just like 80s comes into play quite well. It's just got such a nice feel. So LL Surprise, for example, is like taking a lot of influence from there and a lot of their designs in a successful way. And you wouldn't have thought about that originally, but whoever came up with that was quite genius in a lot of ways.
That's great. Trina, you're exposed to a lot of new inventors and also work with a number of different toy companies and brands. Do you have any other sources of inspiration that you follow that you could add to this list?
Sure. So what David and Harry mentioned are really important. So staying on top of trends, researching companies and understanding what their brands are and sort of the like items that they produce. But one thing that's really important that doesn't change as much as trends, which is very reassuring to me, is kids, and just observing kids and how they play and how they interact with their environment is always a very good place to go for inspiration.
Yeah, that's great. So I think actually bouncing off that, so you have a great idea. How do you prove that it's a good one? And I'd love to go back to you, Harry, for this one, because I think we had a great discussion on this right before the panel started.
Sure. Yeah, there's so many great ideas that kind of pop into mind, whether you're a toy inventor by heart or if it just kind of comes across. I'd say start with your brief, think about your idea, put it on paper. I personally don't want to see a paragraph about your idea. I want to see that fleshed out. I want to see your passion within there. And that start with some drawings, quick models. Kit bashing is a common term in the toy industry. And that's just about buying a bunch of toys that maybe fit what you're talking about and just cutting them up and gluing them together. That's a really cost-effective way to kind of make this happen. As far as creating your ideas that are going to communicate well, images very much help. And if you're doing a collectible line, that's enough. If you want to show me some animatronic dog, you need to start building that out. It's not enough to just allude to the technology that you're maybe thinking could be used. You need to think about that and offer that up as some sort of suggestion. And it's really easy to come up with, you know, some $20 million robot that's going to do everything for you. You know, Boston Dynamics is already doing it. How are we going to do it and sell it for $40? That's the ingenuity that we're looking for. And we need to see that passion from you when conveying your ideas.
Yeah, you hit on something really important, which is that the toy industry is so margin challenged, and you have to like really think about price points and what the key features are when you're kind of coming up with the idea and honing it. This brings me to another part of this question, which I'd love Adam to weigh in on, given his experience bringing products to market directly. A lot of people ask what the importance is for patents and trademarks. Is it something that's necessary before you take it to an inventor relations executive, or something that you should do after? What's the sort of one-on-one on that?
It depends on the concept. Our expectation is that you have neither of those things coming to us. It's early on in the process. We will often rename a product and therefore your trademark may or may not be of use. However, if you have an idea that has, you know, a very innovative mechanism, maybe you would want to consider taking out a utility patent application for that in advance of approaching somebody, if that's sort of part of what it is that you're selling. But if it's more of a concept, you know, patents are tricky, difficult, expensive, and time consuming, and often, you know, not possible for many game and some toy concepts. A trademark is inexpensive and easy to apply for. The trademark protects, you know, words, phrases, or symbols that identify that what's called the source of goods in order to avoid consumer confusion in the marketplace. So that's low-hanging fruit. You could do that. But again, none of these things are absolutely necessary before bringing a concept to a toy executive.
And if you're sort of at the negotiating table with an executive and that issue comes up, is that something that inventors should expect to cover, or that the company would if it was decided to go forward with one?
It's in the contracts for sure. And, you know, typically, well, I won't go into the details of that, but you want to understand what's market for, you know, who gets to own what for what period of time. You know, you should also be just relatively conversational on the topic. I get pitches sometimes that say, "Oh, I've patented this game," but I'm like, you can't. There's certain things I know you can't patent. So that that frequently says to me that this is, someone who hasn't done their homework or is very new to the industry. So sort of understand what it is you're saying to people who will clearly, know the answers to these types of questions.
Yeah, and there's the WIT community has so many great resources for vetting some of these questions before you sit at the table. So that's also something I would encourage people to do.
Can I go off script and chime in, please?
Sure.
I just wanted to add to that, so from my perspective on the whole patent issue is I find novice inventors, they're really fear-based and they feel like they have to have this thing to protect them. And it's really expensive to apply and pursue patents. And normally, if they do license the product, a company will cover a portion of it. And I guarantee you a toy company's patent counsel is going to execute it much better than they probably would have done themselves. So when people ask this of me, I say it's not necessary. If anything, save that money and then use that to build models. That we care more about, I think, than having you spend money on patents. So, sorry.
That's great. Yeah, no, thank you for that advice. I wanted to cover one other legal aspect that usually is something that will come up when you are taking your toy into someone's doors, and that's NDAs. Tanya, would you mind going through sort of what that process is and what someone can expect? Because I think this is something where people can be a little bit nervous, fear-based, as Trina said.
Absolutely. So not all companies have NDAs. Certainly some of the smaller ones do, but most of the bigger companies, I guess it just matters. You have to know who does and who doesn't. I can speak on behalf of the companies I've worked for, and including Hasbro. We do. So we have it's a non-disclosure agreement is what NDA. We have a different acronym for ours. So you need to sign that before we have a relationship where you pitch me ideas and I can confide in you about things that we're doing and what we're up to in terms of the brand that you're interested in. So we won't sign other people's NDAs. Sometimes we have people approach us and say, hey, will you sign our NDA? We will not, mainly because we represent a very big company and we are ourselves, Inventor Relations, are not lawyers. So anything that would need to be signed on behalf of the company would need to be vetted through our legal, and that's super expensive, and we're not going to do that. So, but rest assured that no company is ever about trying to rip off inventors. So that's not the point of it, but we do have to protect ourselves in case there's something already in-house that's being developed that is similar to yours, things like that. We'll be very transparent with you if that is the case. So so you need to sign our NDAs. We won't take submissions over email. If we're meeting at a conference or an event, you need to sign it beforehand, and that's the way it is. But whether you're a small one-person company or you're one of the biggest invention houses like BMT, Big Monster Toys, or IDEO, or any of the big ones, they all sign it. So don't think that there's anything we're trying to pull over on you, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think on that note, it'd be great to start talking about all the different options that inventors have when approaching different toy companies. So, you have this great item, you've done a robust search to make sure that it is unique and novel and that there's nothing like it out there and that it's following a trend. And now you're thinking about who to bring it to. So, David, do you have any advice on how potential inventors can research who their targets might be and who might be best able to license that item successfully?
For sure. I mean, the company websites will have a pretty good brand portfolio outline of where they're playing, what license they have. But like for the more sleuthy types, it might be cool to set up Google alerts for companies that acquire licenses so that you're at the forefront of new acquisitions or new properties that come out if your thing is particularly tied to a license or a certain brand. These events are amazing. It gives you access to, and faces to the people who are going to be licensing your product. So the WIT is a phenomenal one-stop shop to get in touch with folks. And another sleuthy bit, the New York Toy Fair event, you have all these influencers going through the booths, and you don't have to wait till product shows up at retail. You can check out all the YouTube videos and the YouTube tours that influencers get to go on and see before anyone else the portfolio that company has. And 90% of the stuff's out there. You might have some closed door stuff that might not make it, but it gives you a really good sort of insight and before anyone else to look at what's going on in their portfolio.
Yeah, that's all you need is 10 million followers to get in the doors.
Exactly.
Trina,
You don't have to. You can just follow somebody who's already doing
no,
it.
exactly. Trina, when you're looking at product ideas, you look sometimes for multiple toy companies since you're representing a couple in your portfolio. How do you determine which will be a good fit for your clients from the products that you see?
The same way that the other panelists do. So we may all do it a little bit differently, but the IR role, our job is really to collect and gather what the brand teams, or in our case, our clients' needs are. What's their strategy? Where do they want to go? What do they want to see from the inventing community? And then we need to publish that. We do that through our Tinkerly platform, which is how we stay connected to inventors. But that's, to answer your question, that's how I know, is because I have my marching orders, I have my strategy, and I know what I need to deliver against for that season. So that's how I know.
Great. Adam, do you have any insights as to how you can determine whether you want to take it to one of the toy companies that you show it to, or if during that process you decide to take it to yourself, like how you can make that determination once you start investigating options?
I do, and I think that's an important question, particularly in this day and age where there are alternative platforms to, going through a large manufacturer to get your product to market. So Kickstarter and Indiegogo and other crowdsourcing platforms are mainstream and easy to use today. Yeah, they've become increasingly competitive, but for certain categories, strategy gaming in particular, I mean, that's a terrific to go to rather than to go through the licensing process. The other tip I want to give is that, I have found from experience that, occasionally we get pitches or have done deals with individuals who have previously done all the legwork and brought their product to market and have had substantial sales and are very emotionally attached to their product. And if for one reason or another, they decide to hand it off to a manufacturing partner for a licensing royalty. And this licensing royalty is a very small sum compared to what you might be getting from an FBA sale on Amazon.com. And that, even though these numbers are known, I'm constantly surprised that these entrepreneurs are surprised, that it takes time to get to hundreds of thousands of units in sales, where you might be seeing the same kind of dollars come into your pocket for much less effort. And so there's a interesting debate that you should have with yourself about whether or not it makes sense to license out or to go alone. And that depends on, personal resources, personal time, emotional investment, et cetera.
Yeah, that's great. They actually got into this issue a lot in the Toy Babies panel earlier today. And I think one of the other considerations that was raised there is, do you want to spend your time on capital and raising that and sort of managing the business versus coming up with products? And I think that was a great sort of binary to look at if you had to. You also mentioned Kickstarter, Adam. So I even see a lot of toy companies doing Kickstarters to get interesting products out the door. Hasbro does it for some of their higher end toys. I think you've done it as well for some games products there. So it's not necessarily a direct to market thing anymore. It's also a way that people vet products. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, the nature of Kickstarter's changed a lot since I actually launched my second of the two companies that you mentioned on Kickstarter maybe 5 years ago now, where in those days you really truly needed to be kickstarting something and Kickstarter vetted that. Today it's more of a marketing platform, and there's, you need a lot more sort of, an audience built up and ready to go. So it's a platform, but you have to do a lot more upfront legwork, whereas 5 years ago you didn't have to do as much of that. Kickstarter can be a blessing and a curse if you're not careful. You might have a fantastic idea, and if you haven't done the legwork necessary to launch properly, you might fail to launch correctly, thereby creating this indelible mark that looks like the product was unsuccessful when in fact you didn't really know how to maneuver the Kickstarter platform. So if you're going to go that route, make sure you've talked to a consultant friend or other advisor about how to do that. And yes, I think companies, we do that for strategy games. We think it's an interesting sales channel. I know Tanya could speak to it. I think that Hasbro uses their own proprietary platform, but it's the same idea. We don't have the reach to do that, but Kickstarter is a great avenue for us for certain categories of product.
Yeah, do you want to weigh in, Tanya?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So we have our own platform called Hasbro Pulse, and it's for product that typically isn't a slam dunk decision for a product on shelf at retail. So for instance, last week we launched a board game, the first board game that was funded in 12 hours, had a $1 million kind of a barrier we needed to get over. And it was for super fans of a board game that's ages old called Hero Quest. So but that would be very hard for us to bring to the Walmart shelf. So this is a way we can help super fans get product to super fans. We've got internal super fans of the product that wanted to bring that to market. So that was the way we do it. And Hasbro Pulse is also a place where a lot of more higher specialized toys as well is a platform. Hey, in this day and age, no matter what size of company you are, you have to know how to reach your consumer in different ways. And so Hasbro Pulse for us is one of those. As an aside, for Kickstarter, I'm always looking on Kickstarter. So it's for games specifically, because I do games. So even, I'm looking there to see kind of what's resonating with the market as well. So they're great platforms, and they're a great way to get a read on what consumers want.
That's great. I want to make sure we have about 10 minutes. So I want to make sure we move ahead to the package that people are showing. So I'm going to skip ahead to talk about the pitch itself and sizzles. David, can you tell us some advice? You're a tech savvy guy right now. Can you tell us some advice on how to make a sizzle? If you don't have a lot of resources, you're an inventor of one, and you're so good at like designing beautiful dolls, but you have to make a video, where do you start?
With this, all you need is an iPhone or a smartphone and maybe some good stabilization within the app. But it's not much. We're not looking for studio level quality production. It's gotta just highlight the features that are gonna get not just me excited, but the folks back home excited. Because I'm gonna take your Sizzy and share it with the team, and I hope it highlights all the cool stuff that's great about your concept. So don't stress too hard about, all the effects and all that stuff. You just make sure that your product speaks for itself and keep it under 60 seconds.
That's good. Everyone who's in the know on this panel, if you call it a Sizzy when you talk to David, he'll know you were at this panel. Trina, you have a lot of awesome resources on Tinkertini to help with the pitch process. Can you talk to what goes into a great sizzle?
Sure. So what it is, it's really just a 1 to 2 minute short video of showing us exactly, like, get to the action right away. Is just show it what it does, show us the magic moment. Keep in mind that when we are showing sizzles, it's usually in a lineup of anywhere from 20 to 50 things. So it really needs to be in a short format, and humor helps, sound effects helps, featuring real kids interacting with it helps. If anyone wants to see some sample mock sizzles, we're happy to share that with anyone if they'll find that helpful. So we've made some fun, silly animated ones that pretty much mirror the format of what we see.
Are those available on your website, or what's the best way to get those to people?
It's part of our Tinker Next program, but if they go ahead and just email us at the info@tinkertini.net, we'd be happy to share them.
That's great. Tanya, are there any specific pointers you'd give specifically for games? Since I know, there's toys can cover a wide variety of categories, but games in particular are very special.
Yeah, sure. I'm not sure if it's that much different from, toys, Sizzies for David, as he's called them. So basically, you need energy. Like, we need energy. So I look at so many videos. I love when things are creative. You show your passion. So, bring some of that energy to the sizzle. David's right. You only need an iPhone. We're not looking for highly polished, produced things. Well, I just get you in front of an iPhone, or your product in front of an iPhone. It needs to be, for games specifically, your best feature about your game and how to play the game. So lead with why it is you're showing me and you think Hasbro is the right company for it. So what's the best feature that's going to, rock our world? And then also I need a sense of how to play. So it's not just like, look at this explosion, but also like, this is what a turn looks like. This is how you play the game. I need to come away with a sense of what your game is about, and obviously how to play it. It needs to be under, so 30 seconds would be awesome. Under 2 minutes is good. If you're confused, then hit up Kickstarter. There's some amazing videos on there. And take a look at, if you can't get into Tinkertini's examples, but Kickstarter is a great way. There's a lot of great videos there that sell their idea. So you can take a look for inspiration there.
Awesome. And one more question for you, Tanya. So let's say we pitch you something and you love it. What happens next?
Yeah, sure. Good question. So the reason why that sizzle video is so important is because After you get through me and I like it, so I'm like the gateway, then I've got to turn around and pitch it to the Hasbro gaming leads that I work with on the inside. So the best way for me to do that is through your video, because you are the most knowledgeable person about the game and you have the most energy and passion for it. So that's why those videos are so important. And I would say even more so these days where everything is happening virtually, because everything is shut down. Our office is shut down. So all of this is happening. We have not missed a beat because games has had such a lift in this, but we need to keep business going. And one of that is through virtually sharing. And so your video is super important for that. I pitch it in. If there is interest internally, then I let you know, because we have a platform that we communicate on called Ignite. I'll let you know that we're interested and I want a prototype after that. So you need to give me about a month or so to process it and get it in front of my team. If it's a pass, you'll know right away. If there's interest, then I ask for a model for us to play test. So a play testable model, something we can put into our fun lab and get it into the hands of the audience that it's for. And then I usually need a couple of months, in which case for us to vet it and see if we're interested. And then after that, if we are interested, then we would option, which is paying you an amount to keep it off the table from anyone else. And then we'll like really deep dive into it, look at costing, marketing, packaging, all of those things. And we'll option it for typically 2 months. And then after that, if we're interested in moving forward and it's vetted out financially and the gameplay and everything else, we'll move to contract. So that's basically the timeline.
That's awesome. I am going to switch right now to the lightning round just because I want to make sure we get to some Q&A. So I know I missed a few questions for panelists, but hopefully you can speak to anything that I left out at this time. So the first one for everybody, and I'll just call on you, we'll do it in the order of the bios, is what are your top do's and don'ts about pitching and how do people get to you? David.
How people get to me, you can email me and you can catch me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best foot forward. And then do's and don'ts, I would just say be relaxed. I think that's the one that a lot of newcomers get hung up on, is the folks sitting across from you are looking at every angle and doing everything in their power to see the opportunity in front of them and work with you. So just feel like they're on your side right from the get-go.
That's awesome. I think that's been sort of hammered home on this, is that you guys are representing a company, but you're also really incentivized to help the inventors. So thank you for ending on that. Trina, over to you, your top tips.
Well, just to build on what you just said. So yes, we all look after our clients. That's our business. That's what we do. But more importantly, we are advocates for the inventing community. So if something doesn't land with one of my clients and it does at Hasbro, I am ecstatic for that inventor because I know that they're going to be healthy for a while, and that means that they do what they do and that we get to work with them even longer. So just to build out like the do's and don'ts, I think to help take the pressure off when you're pitching a product, which can be very intimate, especially for new inventors, is don't think about it like you're pitching your concept. Come to a meeting like you're going to try to build it and start a relationship with that person that you're pitching. So think of it like we're going to talk about my concept and I'm going to hear your feedback, but you're looking more to start a relationship with someone and less have it be a yes, no. I think that helps sort of reframe it and take some of the pressure off of people.
I love that. Harry, what about for you? What are your top tips for everybody on this panel?
I would say just stay positive. Just remember that we are here for your success. We want to get an item in that will work for both of us. And when you pitch an item, we're going to give you some feedback and just really pay attention. I know it's easy to get defensive and this is your baby and you've invested so much into that, but just remember that this is me trying to introduce you to our company and our way of thinking. And that might work for someone else. I'm just telling you why it's not working for me. And there's quite a difference in there. So pay attention to what we're saying. Try to be respectful in that and understand that we're working towards it with you. And if it's not this item, then it'll be the next one. And you're just more informed about what we're looking for and how to get that across to us.
Yeah, I think there's also timing. Timing is always a thing. It could be that, you're not focused on something because internally you have a really strong line that would compete with that, but maybe in 2 years you need to replace that. So if you have that relationship that Trina talked about, you can always bring that back. Tanya, can we go over to you for your top tips?
Yes. Okay. So before, make sure you do your research so you know the company that it is that you're pitching, so that you know without a shadow of a doubt that the product that you are pitching actually suits that company. Because Harry's absolutely right. If it's not right, or we don't have a place for it, then it's never going to fly with us. During the pitch, I love telling people in games especially to stack your deck. So don't just roll the dice randomly or draw random cards. Like, stack it in the pitch so that you're showing off your product's best features. So that's really important. Don't just fumble through it. You don't want to risk everything on a bad dice roll. And then afterwards, I'll say, and I'm skimming through, is follow up. So if you don't hear back from us one way or another, if you don't know what the time frame is when the meeting's over and there's next steps, ask, when can I expect to hear back from you? And then follow up. We're extremely busy people. I see over 3,000 concepts in a year. So if I don't want to forget about you, that's not the type of person I am. So I appreciate when people follow up. Don't do it crazy like every day for the next week, but get a sense of my timing and then feel free to follow up with me. And then how do you reach me? It's not easy, I have to admit, because I'm one person doing for the largest game company in the world. I am one person that is intaking. So, but I want to get to know you. I want to meet you. So the best thing is we have a website called Spark. So spark.hasbro.com. And if you're in the US, you can pitch through that portal that we have for people that don't already have a relationship with us. And then the other way is by doing events like this and getting to know people and getting to know the people you want to actually pitch to. So ShyTag, WIT, Mojo, Toy Fairs, etc., Gen Con, Essen, all of those. In person is always great. I LinkedIn, I get too many cold calls. So I'm not with LinkedIn because there's just too many people trying to pitch me stuff, and I really just don't honestly have time. So the events and things are probably the best way for me.
That's awesome. You actually answered one or two of the questions in your response, so that's awesome. Adam, last but not least, do you mind giving some of your top tips for a potential inventor who's going to come talk to you?
Sure. Although Tanya really covered a lot of ground there, and I don't have too much to add. You can reach me via, we have a landing page on our website at playmonster.com. Sometimes blind submissions are open, sometimes they're not. I actually don't mind LinkedIn. I prefer it over email. Throwing a pitch and attachment over the fence at me via email is probably the worst way to reach me, just because of the drinking from a fire hose. It's not productive. I'd rather be able to scan through your bio and see a little bit about who you are and what you're doing, where you've come from. Your background may entice me, related to what it is that you're pitching. I think live events are a good one. So I sometimes point, people that I don't know to, hey, look up what's called now People of Play coming up in November. We're going to be there. Sign up for it. It's inexpensive. That's probably, you will at least get on a big list of people that I'm going to pick from, versus an infinite list of, inbound inquiries that I get via other channels. In terms of tips, I think, I'll touch on the video length. There was some cross information about how long. I'm hearing sub 60 seconds. Other people are saying 30 to 60 seconds. I think my clarification on that is that I will watch a 30 to 60 or a 1 to 2 minute video, but when I take it to my team, they're not going to watch a 1 to 2 minute video. So, you can have a director's cut. I'm happy to watch it, but the best videos I've seen are 45 seconds. The big houses, BMT has mastered this. Their videos are all like 27 seconds, and they get the point across really tight, and it's just easy to watch a lot of those, and and it really gets the message across quickly. So I think that'd be my number one tip. Yeah.
That's great. I think we have a few questions from the audience, and I want to make sure that everyone has time to get to those. Shannon, do you want me to go through, or you want to put anyone on video? Thank you so much to all of our panelists. As you can tell, there's a wealth of knowledge with people here, and more importantly, they're just amazing humans who are super approachable and wonderful to work with. So as they mentioned, start a relationship, reach them on LinkedIn or via email, and remember that they're here to advocate for you. So if you're thinking of licensing your items to any of these toy companies, and they're examples of how the rest of the industry behaves as well, then feel like that's a great option where there are ways for you to take your product to market with them.
Because I feel like this doesn't get brought up often, but like that Toy and Game Inventor's Handbook, and I don't mean to plug Richard Levy's book, but it is a wealth of knowledge in there that is worth a read. And there are so many resources online. And I'm also going to plug Trina's business. She does more for the community to show how it's done and how it's done right. She's really giving you the keys to the kingdom. And I put her website. Some people were texting in the Q&A, so they can check it out directly. They were saying it's a STEM website. It's not. Yeah, there's so many good resources out there. So you use your resources. You're not doing this alone.
There were a couple of questions that I thought were really interesting. The first one is, if you like, obviously you spent some time on the video, so the video is very important, but what about like a PDF presentation? It sounds like someone who has a marketing background. I don't have a person in mind who is any of panelists want to take that one. Like, could a pitch deck or something else do this?
And just quickly before we start, sorry to interrupt, but everybody knows the drill who's on as attendees, that if you're interested in joining on video, go ahead and raise your hand and I'll start adding people while our panelists answer that question.
This one was from NB.
I could take that question. And I do get those occasionally, more typically for collectible concepts. And I'll flip through those. And it's the same thing I said about the video. Like, that's fine for me, but it's harder to pitch, because then I'm sitting in a conference room with my senior management team and the brand managers and the other people in our organization. And then I have to sort of, what am I working with? I don't know the pace. The deck may be 30 pages long. It's harder to pitch. It can be done, and I'd say it's the next best thing. But to David's point, all you need is a cell phone. You can. I don't need high production value, but you need good information in a short period of time, and it's just as easy to do it over video. Get a tripod.
Yeah, and I would add one thing to that is in this day, and people will invest 30 seconds, 1 to 2 minutes, whatever it is, into watching a video. But if you give a PowerPoint presentation that's, say, 10 slides long, you won't really know if they'll invest. They may invest in the first couple or the first few and then go, oh, it's not for me. And then they haven't gotten to the best part. That's why we like a video, is because they'll invest the time to watch it from start to finish. With a PowerPoint, you really aren't sure, unless you're sitting in front of them, when they might click off. And when I'm in a room pitching to like a whole bunch of people, then I'll take them through it. But I'll tell you, in these days, they're often watching a video in advance. So
I would also kind of add like the importance of that. It might not be your forte, you might not have video editing skills, but just understand that's paramount in this industry. And so it's almost as important as your invention skills. Your ideas might be great, but just understand that we're looking at thousands of concepts every year, hundreds a day sometimes. So that's really worth investing into. And if you've got some kid in college that's like willing to do it, get their help, your neighbor's kid, whatever it is, like it really goes a long way. And when you're in a presentation, like Tanya was saying, I might just fall off because I'm like exhausted. It's silent. I'm now pitching the product for you in a way, and I'm reading slides, hundreds of slides later. Whereas the video, it's a lot harder for someone to interrupt. I'm like, wait, I don't get it. Wait, what was that other image? You just watched 30 seconds. You want to watch it again? Cool. If you have a PDF to go with it, great. But that video is so important for us to really value.
Yeah, that brings up a good point, which I sort of skipped over in the interest of time. But in the same way that you are advocating between the inventor and your brand teams, when looking for new items, you're also going the other way, where other teams internally are driving what you're looking for. I know, Tanya, you had mentioned that was really important to keep in mind, that you know your insights, you know your trends. We talked about how you're all expert, but there are brand teams behind you who have ultimate decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, like, I pitch so much to them and I get rejected, probably maybe more so than like, because I'm pitching, let's say 60 concepts a month, and only a few of them are getting through. So I get rejected a lot as well, but I also learn a lot from those rejections. But I know exactly what the team is asking for. So it's like, when I filter, I'm filtering with that background knowledge of actually what, what those teams actually want. So when we give you wish lists or hints of things that we're looking for, it's because we have so much communication with the teams and the brands that we're trying to get product into ourselves.
I love that. Inventor relations executives, they're just like us. They get rejected too. No, and they share in our success, more importantly. And I really thank our panelists for all their time and energy and sitting on the stage with each other, and just for everything that they do to drive innovation in our industry, help bring new concepts to market. So thank you Shannon and the WIT team. This was a really fun panel, and we're happy to have been here.
Thank you so much, Caitlin, and this panel. Appreciate you all so much. And this is our last panel of the day. So those of you who have joined us for everything, we have one more session coming up in about 2 minutes at 6 p.m. Eastern is our happy hour. So we would love to invite everyone to join us there. We'll be doing some reflecting on the day, sharing some different things, and an opportunity to network a little bit more too. So thanks again for joining this panel, everybody, and we will see you over at the happy hour. All right, bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
So you just learned a wealth of information. First, you've got to stay up to date on the trends by walking down the aisles at toy stores. That's one thing you've learned. Also checking platforms like Kickstarter and Indiegogo for toy and game projects that are doing really well. And most importantly, you learned that being up to date on what products toy companies are already creating is super important. So it's time for a quick quiz. Did you catch what Trina McFarland said about how you can calm your nerves when pitching your idea? Trina said, think about your pitch meeting as building a relationship instead of pitching a product. That will help you calm your nerves, but also put you in a better headspace to receive feedback. Harry Sivander also echoed that sentiment when he said that you've got to use these pitch meetings to get to know the companies that you're pitching to and learn how they think. When you're ready, check out the workbook that goes along with this video.